Hello, humans. I know this isn't how things normally happen on this show, but I'm just jumping in at the head of the episode with a quick warning for you. At some point during the episode, around about the 20th minute, you're going to hear this warning. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. When you hear that warning, you might want to skip ahead by about 90 seconds if you haven't seen Boy Kills World, or if you care about being spoiled on something pretty major that happens in that film. If you've already seen the movie, don't worry at all. Enjoy the silly sound effect and carry on listening. We'll just carry on as if nothing had happened, and actually you'll get a little bit of fun from the ensuing conversation that we had regarding the spoiler. But for those of you who have not seen Boy Kills World and care about whether or not you get spoiled on something that happens in the movie, just keep an ear out for that sound effect, and when you hear it, skip forward 90 seconds, or stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 until it's all over. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll try and throw a graphic in there so that you know that we're talking about the spoilers, and then when you skip forward, when you no longer see that graphic, you'll know that we've moved on to past as new. Right, with all of that said and out of the way, let's get on with the show.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 494 this week. My name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK, eventually.
Forgot how the fucking intro goes. After announcing I've done it 400, well, I had a year off, but over 400 times, still forgot. Anyway. Weird start to the podcast this week. Listeners, you don't know this, but we have been troubleshooting for the past hour trying to get it to work, and it just worked. So we're operating with a little less time than normal. So if we seem a little bit more, not rushed, but just, moving quickly and not meandering and tangenting, whatever, that is why. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. We are a horror podcast that talks about all kinds of horror stuff in different mediums. This week we are talking about the 2003 film Memories of Murder by Bong Joon-ho, and it kicks off our South Korean crime horror drama sort of series. We'll be visiting a couple more of these over the next couple weeks. But yeah, this week we're going to be talking about that one. If this is your first time listening, welcome. We're happy you're here. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those places. I think maybe mostly just Instagram now, though, to be honest. And then you can also send us some longer form thoughts if you have any over at our Gmail account, just eerieinternational@gmail.com. If you don't want us to read it on air, make sure you let us know. Otherwise, we will read and discuss and answer any questions or suggestions or whatever you may have for us. I think that's most of the housekeeping stuff. So let's get into what we've gotten into here recently. Dave Roberts in the UK, kick us off. What did you get into this past week?
Well, you see, here's the thing. I'm like the Batman of this podcast, because if you give me time to prepare, then I'm going to bring it. So normally, we had a week off, so I thought, fuck it, I'll watch some horror stuff. Why not?
Shit, that's true. 2 weeks. Yeah, you're right. My bad.
Yeah. So we'll start with this is basically in the order I watched it, and I started with the worst horror film that I think I may have ever fucking seen. Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror from 2024. This is an attempt at remaking the original Nosferatu, to the point that there are certain camera shots that are so close to the original that I wonder why the hell they bothered. I cannot.
Wait. Hold on a second. Is this the Robert Eggers one you're talking about?
No, this is not the Robert Eggers one. Robert Eggers was 2025. This is from 2024. It is an entirely different movie.
Okay, hold on. I found it. So you have it. So according to Wikipedia, the Robert Eggers one is 2024.
Oh, okay.
And then the one you're talking about was released in the U.S. in 2024 after premiering the prior year, and that's Nosferatu 2023. Technically, this is the Doug Jones movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's
okay.
the one. I got
So
my
this one-
I got my years written down wrong. So much for being fucking
you're
Batman,
good.
huh?
I think it was just a matter of when it released, but when it was made, kind of semantics bullshit. But yeah, okay, I do know what this is now because this was like long, not rumored, but just sort of like in discussion, development, whatever, with Doug Jones for, I want to say back when I was in college even, I remember this being discussed and talked about. Like maybe it was a thing where he was attached to different versions of it, and this is the one that finally hit, but
Yeah.
okay, I got it straightened
This
out.
asshole also did a Caligari
Yeah, he did.
remake with Doug Jones 20 years ago.
This asshole.
So, cause here's the thing. I honestly could not tell you if David Lee Fisher is a good director or not, because so much of this movie is ripped directly from the original Nosferatu that you can't judge the artistic eye of a person who is tracing over the original.
Yeah.
But I will say Doug Jones does nothing wrong in this movie at all. He does a wonderful job, as would
I mean,
be
he
expected.
participates. Maybe that's wrong of him.
Yeah.
Maybe, but you don't always know what's
And he's
going
been in
to...
the other one too. What does this Fisher guy have on Doug Jones? I have seen neither of those
This
movies.
could be a good
I think
question.
I'm hearing about them for the first time.
I
shouldn't have an opinion.
Okay, look,
No, this is great. I'm loving it.
genuinely, right live on air, I'm putting you guys on notice. At some point, I'm going to insist that we do a double feature of this movie and the original Nosferatu.
No.
Sorry, they're not available over here.
I'll
cannot
find a
get
way.
them.
You're coming over here in August.
you're-
I'm going to force you to watch it.
I think I'm at a
fucking care.
hip hop party that day already.
Okay, fair enough. I can't blame you. Yeah, it's just it feels like somebody wanted more Sin City in their Nosferatu as well. Like a lot of the backgrounds are green screen. There are some green screen backgrounds which are lifted from the original movie. It's just I don't know what the point of making this movie was, except for the fact that we can get Doug Jones to be in it. Like, that's literally the only reason why you would want to make this movie again. It loses so much of the plot from the original, in terms of explanations as to why the final victim does what she does. It's just it's really badly, I want to say badly made. The cameras do the heavy lifting. It's, like I think the Nosferatu makeup, like the Orlok makeup, looks pretty good actually. Again, it comes in line with Doug Jones being probably the best part of this movie. The lead actor, oh my fucking god, I've never seen such bad acting in my life. And I have been in school nativities, so I know what I'm talking about here. It's really, really fucking poor. Like, so poor from beginning to end. There are some performances that are middle of the road and I don't mind, and there are others that are fucking awful. But I will bring up the fact that I'm talking so authoritatively about the fact that it lifts so much from Nosferatu, because after watching this as a palate cleanser, I needed to watch something else. And so I searched out the original Nosferatu from 1922. I'll have one of you guys check that I've got the year right on that one as well, because I'm unsure about myself entirely now. And that was a massive palate cleanser, but also up until that point, I was just like, oh, Symphony of Horror is just a really badly made movie. And then I saw the original Nosferatu and I was like, oh, hang on a second. Yeah, this is the same movie, but original. And with better acting. Because, I say better acting because this is the thing. I feel like some of the actors were overacting in a way that would benefit a silent movie. But this one has film, has sound. And it just doesn't work. Circling back to the 2023 movie for a second, there are a couple of moments that stand out to me, or stood out to me when I first watched it, that I really enjoyed. The first one was the fact that there was some let me get my foot out of my mouth and I'll say it again. Some German expressionism, kind of sprinkled throughout the early part of the movie. But then that was ruined when I watched the original one and I was like, oh, it's exactly the same set. Yeah, okay, never mind. The one thing that they do come out of me watching both with credit is what happens when Hutter's boss opens the letter from Count Orlok. In the original movie, it's kind of it's made clear that he's a little bit crazy already, but Orlok's letter pushes him over the edge. In the new movie, he opens the letter, and this entire movie is black and white, except for this one scene where he pulls the letter out and there's blood on the letter, and the blood is red. And I instantly thought, oh, yeah, Sin City. And yeah, so it wasn't, it's a terrible movie, but the original Nosferatu, much better. Moving on to movies that I enjoyed a hell of a lot.
Let me just
Yes.
a quick interruption.
Sorry, yes.
That movie is. I didn't even know that Just Watch streams movies, but they do stream this one. I looked it up on Just Watch, and no other service. They list no other service but their own.
Never has there been a film less entitled to be hosted by a service called Just Watch.
Yeah,
Just
funny.
ignore is what I would say about
and
that.
still, this is the movie that you try to force us watching. We haven't done any of the other Nosferatu on the show. We were there. There had been plans of do a remake with the original one and the Werner Herzog one,
Yep.
which we've never done. But you want us to watch the bad one. Couldn't find the
Because it would-
Caligari movie though.
Because it would
So
be
sorry,
funny.
no double feature.
It would be funny. That's the only reason that I wanted to force you guys to watch it. I also watched Death of a Unicorn in the last couple of weeks, and I really enjoyed Death of a Unicorn. Like, genuinely, just love the pants off of this movie. Richard E. Grant being his slimy best, but starting off as a character who you actually feel some sympathy for. Fantastic casting. The cast throughout are fantastic. Jenna Ortega probably doesn't do as much as she can do, but doesn't need to. But yeah, just pillar to post. I love the movie. I love the special effects. The take on the unicorns. The setting is really cool. There is, and I'm forgetting everybody's names because I always do, but there's a not blink and you miss it cameo, but definitely a very small and unheralded one by a friend of the Cornetto trilogy boys. Just looking to see Jessica Hines. There you go. So Jessica Hines appeared in a TV show called Spaced a long time ago with Simon Pegg and pretty much everyone else that then went on to appear in the Cornetto trilogy of movies. And she was Simon Pegg's flatmate in that movie and the co-lead. And so she gets like a little cameo in this movie as like this British ex-SAS head of security, I guess. And she gets the iconic kind of kill that you get in the Alien movies where like you've got the big gruff gung-ho army officer who then gets absolutely decimated by the alien because they don't know what they're dealing with yet. And that's her role in this movie, to be like, okay, the unicorns aren't here to play around, they're here to cause trouble. And the movie ends really well. I really like the ending of the movie and the way that everything shakes out. I thought Paul Rudd did a really good job of being a character who is almost the opposite of Richard E. Grant's, in that he starts off idealistic, but it very quickly just abandons all of his morals and goes really kind of like, okay, I'm just doing this for my family. I don't care about anything else except my family. And then he goes from this place where you just can't like him to being likable by the end of the movie. Will Poulter's great as the kind of rich, spoilt son who's a bit of a doofus but does have one or two good ideas. Special shout to Anthony Carrigan, who plays Griff in this movie, who is basically the hired help for the family of Odell, and he's great. He's kind of like the guy that says what the audience are thinking at all times. And then he has a really nice moment at the end of the movie that kind of wraps everything together. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was worth watching. I don't know if you guys saw it. I'm sure that you did at some point.
Only the trailer, not the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
Oh, really? Okay. I would recommend it. I would recommend it. It's very alien. It's more alien than it is any of the other movies. That's for sure. And the design of the unicorns I really enjoyed. And all of the lore behind them, I thought it was a nice original take on a mythical beast that really you only see in passing in other fantasy movies. I mean, there is that one animated movie, but we're not going to talk about that. Hellboy, the Crooked Man. I
Oh,
really
Jesus
wanted to
fucking
just
Christ.
yeah. I just apparently really wanted
We're
to
not
watch
talking
bad
about The
movies.
Last Unicorn, but we're talking about this Hellboy. What
Yeah.
is wrong with you, Mr. Roberts?
I didn't.
What a
I didn't watch.
disappointment.
Maybe the connection should have not worked today.
I didn't watch The Last Unicorn in the last 2 weeks. I watched Hellboy: The Crooked Man. That's why I'm talking about it. I will watch The Last Unicorn at some point soon, I'm sure. But Hellboy: The Crooked Man. Apparently, I hate myself and I just want to watch bad movies. And so I did, and yeah, it's bad. It it just doesn't look like a Hellboy movie. It doesn't feel particularly like a Hellboy movie. But then maybe given the fact that I saw the documentary and it was made abundantly clear that Hellboy films and Hellboy comic books don't really feel like each other for good reason. I don't know. It feels like go on.
No, I probably shouldn't talk too much shit. I work in the comic book industry. So.
I do. Mignola promises that this time they would do it right, and this is the version that is closest to the comics. So I think it's a perfect movie. I have not seen it, but I do trust Mike Mignola.
He makes this promise actually. A lot. Yeah.
For me, it just felt like a confusing mess. There wasn't enough time.
I watched the first 10 minutes of it maybe, and I'll finish it at some point. I have arguably 2 Hellboy tattoos. I'm a massive Hellboy, so there's still part of me that's like, I gotta watch it at some point. But the biggest takeaway I remember having was that it was like just an even deeper appreciation for what Del Toro pulled off and Perlman pulled off with inhabiting that character and the makeup and everything. I don't hate the makeup in the fucking other one, David Harbour one. But especially in that first movie, like his fucking tail, the horn, like it's so much prosthetics. When you see this dude and the Crooked Man, immediately you're like, oh, this is Spirit Halloween Hellboy. Like his tail is like, they didn't use CG, which power to them for that, but it's just a fucking loose tail that like knocks into shit when he walks around. Like there's nothing going on. So that was the biggest thing for me, where I was just like, man, why even do this? Like if you don't have enough money for something like this, you can't really fake it. Like it's gonna look shitty. It's gonna look like a fan film. Even if you've got millions of dollars, you've got to be able to nail this part of it. Otherwise it's just clunky. Anyway.
And that was ultimately what I came away feeling like. It was that this was just like a really well-made fan film rather than, so, if it had come from that place originally, I would be like, yeah, no, that's not bad. That's not bad.
But sure.
Have you seen the David Lee Fisher adaptation of Hellboy yet?
No, but I'm looking forward to it. Apparently, it's
just panels from the comics that they filmed.
I mean, he knows Doug Jones.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's going to be entirely in black and white, and they're going to completely miss the explanation of the ending, which probably would be on a par with this movie, because again, felt very lost, didn't understand why certain things were being done. Honestly, like there were times where I was like, did I just not pay attention, or did I fall asleep for a microsecond and I missed a really important thing? Because stuff was coming up that I wasn't sure that I was supposed to know. Like the character that is tagging along with Hellboy is apparently, if she's not a witch, she's certainly capable of casting spells, but you got no indication of that before the point. There was a decent atmosphere at times in the movie. I like the setting. The time that it was set as well.
I think anything that you could say positive about it that I saw is just due to the fact that the original comic is fucking fantastic. The Crooked Man, it's like 2 or 3 issues. It's a short little series. It's a Richard Corbin illustrated one, so it looks fucking amazing. And it's so good. It's set in Appalachia. Like it's a totally different like folklore thing going on. Like that stuff can all translate to the movie right away, just in the script. But then, if you make a shitty movie, it's still a shitty movie. So
yeah, and Hellboy basically just looked like he was wearing a skull cap all the time. Not all the time. Like the thing is, half the time the makeup looked absolutely bang on. The other half, it looked a little bit ropey. And it's the quality control that is the issue when you're working, I assume, with the budget they were working with, which must have been a fair sight less than most movies that are being made today. But a bad budget is not an excuse for this kind of film.
He eats his cigarette butts, though. Isn't that cool?
No.
just like in the comics, right? Such a minor thing, but when I saw that, I was like, fuck this movie. What are they doing? Mignola, you promised us so much. Like, were you on set and watched Hellboy eat a cigarette butt and be like, this is just like the comics, we're nailing it? It's not a big deal, but for some reason it annoyed the shit out of me when I saw him do that.
Yeah, no, it's understandable. Moving on to happier things, I saw Boy Kills World and absolutely fucking loved it.
Very fun movie, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Skarsgård just absolutely nails it. There's a reveal near the end of the movie that in this instance I will not ruin for people. But it felt fairly obvious as to where it was going, and I didn't mind that it went there, to be honest with you. It also stars just a whole bunch of people. Sharlto Copley is in the movie.
Hell yeah.
You've got Famke
What's
Janssen.
her name from Happy Death Day?
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
Isn't she the sister?
She is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Spoiler.
Well done.
Oh shit! Is
Spoiler
that a
that
spoiler?
Dave didn't want to give.
I haven't seen it since the theater. I'm sorry. I forgot that was a reveal. I mean, you
It's
can bleep
cool.
that out if you want.
Yeah, I think I might.
Yeah, that's my bad.
But yeah, Jessica Roth is in it, and I
Yeah.
didn't honestly recognize her rocking those abs until
Yeah.
until the end of the movie, where I was like, I know her from somewhere, and I looked it up, and I was like, oh shit, oh, okay, like girl got in shape for that movie. Holy hell, like she was in shape anyway, but good lord, like washboard abs that girl's got. Holy shit, and I love her mask with like all of the. She talks through the visor of the mask. Like it
Right
just-
now, you're spoiling shit. Maybe
Well, I don't know that I am.
you're gonna have to bleep a lot of shit in this segment, Dave.
Well, no, we just need to bleep the bit that you said, and then the rest of it kind of makes sense because I'm talking
Maybe
about her
just-
character.
Just insert a line before where you say spoilers ahead.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they could do that.
That's the easier way of doing it. Well
There you
done, Andy. Well done, Andy. But yeah, everyone like Yayan Ruhian, who plays the shaman, thought he was great. It's funny. He's one of those characters that you feel like he's a bit skeezy, but he's obviously doing the right thing. And then when the big kind of turnabout happens, you're like, oh no, he is skeezy and he's a nasty man, and I should never have liked him. It's a fun thing that that I've talked before about, like David Tennant is able to do that, Matt Smith can do that, and now we've got another guy that can do it. So add him to the roster.
Hell yeah.
Very much enjoyed Andrew Koji as Basho, like the cowardly sidekick who ends up not being that cowardly. But yeah,
He's gonna be Ryu in Street Fighter, right? Isn't that
Yeah, I
the
think so.
same actor? I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. I forgot he was in this.
yeah, and yeah, just very very much enjoyable movie, and would recommend that everyone check it out. And there were spoiler warnings at the beginning of this, so we don't feel too bad. Now. Very quickly, a couple of podcasts that I listened to. The first one was a episode of Best Movies Never Made, and it was covering Rob Zombie's The Crow 2.
Ooh.
It's a fun podcast. I learnt some things. It was a while ago. I've probably forgotten most of them, but it was a good listen, as Best Movies Never Made often is. They had a couple of guests on from another podcast who, apologies, but I can't remember the name of their podcast. And it's on the Best Movies Never Made feed. Go and check it out if you've got any interest in The Crow. They go through the history of development for The Crow as well, so it's not just Rob Zombie's one that they touch on. They touch on a lot of the other ones that that were mooted but never made before they ended up making The Crow 2 with Iggy Pop, if I remember correctly. I think he was in the second one. Yeah,
You mean the actual one?
The
yeah,
actual
yeah,
one.
he was.
Yes.
He was.
Yeah,
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 I
yeah.
thought you meant it's the Crow in this one they didn't make.
No.
He's
an
a bad
old
guy
crow.
in City of Angels, I think it was.
That's it. And then the last thing was off the back of your recommendation a few weeks ago, David. I searched out and listened to a lot of the early episodes of Super Scary Haunted Homeschool, and dude is funny, like really funny in a way that makes me very jealous because I wish I was that funny. But I really enjoyed how he used that humor to deliver a lot of information about the lore surrounding vampires, not just in the West, but also other places around the world. I remember there was one thing about how vampires can turn people into chickens, which I thought was quite interesting to listen to, quite funny. But yeah, his delivery is excellent, and I'm going to listen to more of it for sure. And yeah, that was it. So
Okay, cool.
Who next?
All right, Andi, go next. Didn't have a sentence
Just
ready.
a couple of things. A couple of weeks ago, a new trailer was released, or the first trailer was released for Adam Wingard's new movie. Adam Wingard.
Ooh, yeah.
Simon Barrett made the movie Onslaught, which looks like The Guest on steroids.
It does.
Listeners know that The Guest is basically the Eerie International movie, our favorite movie. And after 2 Godzilla Kong movies, Adam Wingard is back doing his own material with Simon Barrett, who also wrote The Guest and several other Adam Wingard projects. This movie is being released by A24, so it's The Guest with more money.
Yep.
And I also listened to a podcast interview with Adam Wingard from March 2025, basically about the movie. So the actor Michael Biehn has a podcast called Just Foolin' About with Michael Biehn. Michael Biehn, of course, was Kyle Reese in The Terminator, was Hicks in Aliens, and many other things. And he also is in Adam Wingard's new movie Onslaught. So March last year, they released this conversation between Adam Wingard and Michael Biehn. And they talk a lot about the production of Onslaught and about the movie. Movie's not coming out until September, so as you can see, I think if I remember correctly, Adam Wingard at that point said he hopes that they would be able to release it by autumn, Halloween, or so 2025. So got delayed quite a bit, but it's coming out. At least in the US, I'm very curious how they will deal with the movie in Germany. It's A24, so maybe it will get a theatrical release, maybe for a week. Who knows? Maybe it's a huge hit. Maybe it comes. I don't know. But I definitely want to see it. I'm very excited for this movie. Wingard and Barrett, such a great team, and I love the guests so much. So I hope that this will be a Dan Stevens is in it again. In the trailer, we only hear his voice as German scientist.
Yep.
So yeah, these 2 things, Onslaught and the Just Foolin' About with Michael Biehn podcast with Adam Wingard from last year. That's the 2 things that I wanted to mention.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very excited for it too. I saw Backrooms on Friday night, which I'll mention in a second, and they showed a trailer for it in front of that. And I had only gotten to see it on my little cell phone screen when I was traveling last week on vacation when it came out. So seeing it full blown. There was also part of me that was like, I have to start right now reminding myself that this is not going to be connected to The Guest. And if it does connect, that will be cool. But I can't, because there's just so many things that line up with it where your brain is like, is this a secret? Like, is this in the Guest universe? I want to start doing that shit.
There's that agency that is in Your Next and The Guest, which I'm blanking on the name of.
I forgot they're in Your Next.
So I was curious if that agency might play a role in Onslaught again. I haven't looked into it, but maybe.
Yeah, looks great. Also, fantastic shot of the end of the trailer with a woman screaming, holding a chainsaw. I'm always a fan of that. Any kind of imagery where that shows up in a movie.
I think everyone should scream at all times when holding a chainsaw.
Yeah,
I think
pretty
that would
much.
Just make life
you need to be
better.
louder than the chainsaw is your actual goal.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, I have a few things I mentioned already. I will quickly mention I watched Mortal Kombat 2. It was all right. If you watched the first one, then it's that again, basically. Hilariously, they do absolutely just replace the main character of the first movie, a guy who had a whole ass arc. He is barely in the second one, and he gets killed in his first fight. Spoilers. Don't put a spoiler warning in that one, Dave. Who gives a fuck? But if you eventually watch much like people probably already do for the video games, a fight / fatality compilation of the movie on YouTube at some point. I think that's kind of really what's worth watching about it. If you're a die-hard Mortal Kombat fan, there's a lot of cool lore shit in it. If you know the lore. And so there was some of the stuff in there that I remembered growing up where I was like, oh shit, it's fucking Baraka, and there's this clan, like all that kind of stuff. But otherwise, it's fine. The fight choreography is not great. I don't remember how good or bad it was in the first one. I remember the first one being like fine, and I had a good time with it for what it was. But in this one, you can really tell like these aren't, for the most part. There's one or two fights that are an exception, but for the most part, it's just like actors doing very basic, slow stunt work kind of stuff. There's a couple fights where you can tell like, oh, these dudes know how to fight. So like this is clearly like, you know, a much faster, more kinetic sort of thing. But for the most part, it's kind of slow and plodding. Where it does come in and is fun in its moments are those, or when it gets really gory and there's kills and that kind of shit. So that's why I wanted to bring it up from a horror perspective. And then, yes, I saw two more things this past weekend. So Friday night, I saw Backrooms. I liked it quite a bit. It obviously has been out for 2 or 3 weeks now in the U.S. It's done very well, like incredibly well. I think it and Obsession have both had this. There's a lot of articles you can read now about people talking about like, you know, Gen Z filmmaking and filmmakers coming from, you know, working within YouTube or TikTok or short form sort of media, and then making a larger form project after that. Between Obsession and there's other ones too, but Obsession and Backrooms are like the two big ones. Markiplier sort of too with Iron Lung. So the whole phenomenon's very interesting. I was already a fan of liminal space shit, and we've done an episode on creepypasta, and some of the roots I have with it go further back before it was, I don't mean that in a hipstery way, but just reading creepypasta stories and stuff. So when the first original Backrooms kind of picture came out and all that stuff started, it was a natural fit for that, and SCP and all that kind of stuff. So I had seen some of the YouTube series and was aware of Kane Parsons, and obviously there's a lot of talk around him being so young and everything else. But I wondered how I would interact with the movie. I had seen most people seem to like it that I followed on Letterboxd. I saw a lot of like, there's not really a plot, it's just atmosphere kind of thing, which is sort of a reoccurring thing you get with A24 movies anyway. I wondered how I would interact with it. My expectations were probably slightly lowered just because I saw a little bit more division within the horror community. For me, it worked really well. So by the time I actually watched it, I was pretty into it. It is very much drenched in atmosphere, in, you know, exploring the back rooms and seeing this area, the space, the stuff that is in there in terms of plot, script, character development, to me was enough. It was very much a thing where it was like, we're adding this stuff to these characters, but ultimately their arcs, or the whole point of what we're doing with them, is about them discovering the back rooms, and then their own sort of stories reflected in that in a way. I won't say without getting too spoilery, but if you're interested in all of the lore and all the, you know, just the concept of this stuff, liminal, like I think you'll have a good time with it. If you're looking for something that's like, you know, a deep, like elevated horror, kind of Hereditary, or, you know, I'm just using that as an example, but something that's going to have a lot of meat on its bones thematically. And I think the acting in this was great, but it's also pretty straightforward. It's a lot of surface level sort of like conflict and themes that they're dealing with and everything else. But I definitely enjoyed it. The theater, so again, it's been out for a few weeks. The theater was still pretty full. So it's doing really well. I've really also enjoyed watching Kane Parsons interviews. If you see any interviews with this kid, and I don't mean that in a condescending way, but he's very young. I mean, he made the YouTube stuff when he was 16, and now this movie directed when he was 19 or 20, I think. So watching him talk about filmmaking, his approach, everything else, to me has been very inspiring, encouraging, of like, oh shit, this makes me so much happier knowing that there's younger people, there's generations coming up that are like really pushing back against a lot of the shit that we're seeing in Hollywood and AI. I've seen a couple of videos of Kane Parsons just straight up being like, I'm not touching AI. I don't give a fuck about it. I'm making stuff I want to make that can only be made by a human. It makes no sense to me to go to that, which was encouraging to hear. So definitely enjoyed it, recommend it. If you're not interested in the Backrooms, and if you have a huge aversion to A24 style horror movies, it probably won't be your speed, but otherwise I did enjoy it. And then the other thing I wanted to quickly mention, this just kind of worked out serendipitously, right? Is that how you say that word? I think it is.
Yeah.
Where they were, so as listeners may know, we did an episode that was split between a Harlan Ellison short story, I Have No Mouth But I'm a Scream, and then I'm a Scream, whatever it is, and then The Amazing Digital Circus. So it's come up a few times on the show. we had mentioned at one point, I think it was when a Smart Otaku wrote in and explained kind of the stuff that's going down with the fandom and how the final episode's supposed to be coming out, I think on the 17th or 19th of June. But it got leaked, and then there was a theatrical release. There's all kinds of stuff behind it. But the theatrical release of this Amazing Digital Circus finale, it's the episodes 8 and 9. So episode 8's 30 minutes, 9 is an hour, so it equals out to about a feature-length movie, about 90 minutes. And it did so well when it was supposed to be on like 900 screens or something for like a week, maybe 5 days, something like that. And it expanded into like over 2,000 theaters because of fan support, demand, people pre-ordering tickets, whatever. And then they extended the release window as well. So I thought I wasn't going to be able to see it in the theater because I was in Maine last week on vacation, seeing family. But then yesterday I was just getting on my movie theater, like my Regal app, and looking to see what was playing. I was like, oh shit, it's still around, and I had a free afternoon. So I drove over there yesterday and watched it with 3 other people in the movie theater, which is still pretty crazy for a YouTube series that was not supposed to be in theaters at all. And I loved it. I genuinely thought it was great. I teared up a few times. I thought it was really emotionally affecting, impactful. I thought it looked fantastic. It translated perfectly to a huge screen. It did not at all feel, I mean, it's animation, so I'm sure there's, they can scale it up or whatever, but it felt very, it didn't feel weird at all. I've watched some things through Fathom Events. Fathom Events put this thing out. In the US, they do a lot of stuff where it's like, filmed opera performances, or when they did that Spirited Away stage show in Japan a while back, the filmed version of it was released here from Fathom Events. And so sometimes when you go see a Fathom Events thing, it kind of feels like you're watching something on a movie screen, but it doesn't quite feel right. This didn't feel like that at all. And weirdly enough, 8 and 9 did not feel disjointed together as a whole. It felt like a full movie, the way episode 8 starts and the way episode 9 sort of ends. There's a symmetry there. Like, it made a lot of sense in the way that they did it. I thought it was great. I refreshed my memory a little bit in terms of like how fans interacted with it and stuff that was coming out ahead of time and everything else. And I won't go off on a huge tangent here, but I will say, in the year of our Lord 2026, there's maybe nothing fucking worse for franchises, for art, than the fans. I am so sick of it, dude. Between Stranger Things, between The Boys, and now Amazing Digital Circus, where I'm like, I don't want to fucking hear from anyone on what they thought about stuff anymore, which is such a bummer, because that's how the 3 of us even met in a lot of ways. That's how we've interacted with people and gotten to know people over the years through our respective podcasts and projects and everything else. There have always been people that are negative and toxic and shitty and whine about everything that comes out, and like, oh, everybody's pumped about Inception coming out, and there's one guy who's like, oh, well, it's fucking stupid, he ripped this thing. There's always that person. That's okay. Always going to be those people. But Jesus Christ, dude, here lately, the amount of stuff that's come out where I watch it and I'm just like, not only is this not bad, it's good. And when you look up reviews, critics, whatever, and some people have different opinions on that, I don't really give a fuck. If you're a critic, you're professionally trained to do something more than some goddamn loser on Facebook who's pissed about a movie. So sorry, that's my take on it. Critically, all these things are super well received, but there's a contingency of fucking Reddit and Twitter and 4chan's even a thing anymore, I don't know. People complaining about this shit, and it drives me crazy. It impacts mental health for the creators, like in Gooseworks' case with this thing, with the amount of tweets and stuff that Gooseworks has put out where they just seem completely demoralized and exhausted by the entire experience. And then I'm watching the credits for this Amazing Digital Circus finale, and Gooseworks wrote and directed it, like responsible for like the main sort of driving force. But then I watched the entire credits, waiting and looking at each block of text. Gooseworks' name is showing up constantly, like compositing, character design, all that, like just involved with everything, put so much of themselves into this. And just what a bunch of fucking toxic, shitty, quote unquote fans that have fucking ruined so much of this and like damaged creative people's spirits. That's the thing that drives me fucking crazy. And the whole thing with the Sonic the Hedgehog movie and fucking Zack Snyder's Justice League, all these situations where we have fans that are dictating and changing the future of art because they're fucking whining, and there's enough suits and people involved in some of these cases, Amazing Digital Circus not so much, that are willing to spend millions of dollars to change things to appeal to that. To me, it is fucking anti-art. It's almost the same thing as artificial intelligence when it comes to generative art, where there's no soul to it. There's a clip. So last thing I'll say, I'm on a fucking tear right now. I forget,
brother.
I forget where it was. It might have been in the newest Patrick H. Willems video, which I'm halfway through. It just came out a couple days ago about like streaming movies, and a big part of that thesis of that video is how much data and analytics have been gathered by all these companies and then are very specifically curating and developing their content toward those numbers. So there was one anecdote in there. I forget what movie it was, but he wanted to do, it was for Apple TV Plus. The guy wanted to do an opening that was reminiscent of an older 70s movie that had a montage with the credits and everything else. And Apple straight up was like, you can't, because if there's not something happening within the first 30 seconds, people will turn it off. And so because he was wanting to work with them and make the movie, like, he compromised there. And it seems like he was able to kind of keep most of his stuff otherwise. But he was like, yeah, I don't want that, obviously. I'm making this thing I want people to watch. But the fact that we have all this shit dictated by these factors is the worst. And the thing that made me think of it, the last thing I'll say is I think it was in that Patrick H. Willems video, or I was watching another video about this topic, and he played a quote from, it probably was Willems, because there's a quote from Noel Gallagher, I think it is, from Oasis, and he's talking about how, I forget the bands that he names now, it might have been Iggy Pop, I forget now, but he was like, the Sex Pistols, he mentions them, he's like, these people, these bands, fuck what the consumer wants. The consumer thinks they want these things, and then these artists show up and say, no, you don't. Here's what you want. Here's the stuff that we're making, and that changes shit. When you just give them what they think they want, or what you think that they want, nothing is happening. Nothing of value is being created. Anyway, so it just made me fired up and excited about this particular thing, because it is such a unique project, Amazing Digital Circus. It's a web series that then made it into theaters on a 2-week basis. Like, it was outperforming other major Hollywood films. Iron Lung was the same way. Like, I'm excited about all this shit with new forms of media and filmmakers coming in, where the sensibilities and the approaches and everything, I feel like, are so fucking on point and just creatively pure. And then we have a contingency of people trying to actively fuck that up. And not only is it annoying and bad and draining for the creatives, but if things do well and if things are financially successful, then it's only leading to more bad shit. And that's a lot of what Willems is talking about in that video, is if you've noticed this trend, guess what? You're about to see so much fucking more of it, because all they're doing is pulling this data and getting more and more of it and just creating fucking slop. And it's not even AI. It's made by people. But his whole point in that, too, with the streaming thing, anyway. So, yeah, I recommend it. Go see it. But don't fucking whine about it online. I don't give a shit if you didn't like it. I am getting into this phase now where I'm just so fucking annoyed by fandoms, man. It's crazy. All these things, we should have discussions. We should have disagreements. But it just feels like it's gotten to a point now. And people have probably been saying this for years. People have probably been said this 20 years ago. But especially now with the way the internet's plugged in and it's all connected, it just drives me fucking crazy. All right, we were supposed to speed up, and I just went on a crazy tangent. Let's talk about what we're talking about this week. All right. Memories of Murder, 2003 South Korean neo-noir crime thriller film directed by Bong Joon-ho from a screenplay by Bong and Shim Sung-bo. Based off of the 1996 play Come to See Me by Kim Kwang-lim, it stars Kang-ho and Kim Sang-kyung in the film Detectives Park. Man, there's so many fucking Korean names. Two detectives.
Surprise.
Lead. I know. I was like, I'll say the first few, and then I'm like 18 in. Two detectives lead an investigation into a string of rapes and murders taking place in Haesong, I don't know how to pronounce it, in the late 80s. It's semi-biographical retelling of loosely inspired by some real events, blah, blah, blah. So this is Bong Joon-ho's second film. It's one I've always known about, always been on my radar, have never watched. Everybody fucking loves this movie. It is widely praised and talked about whenever it's brought up. Bong Joon-ho obviously went on to have a massive career. We've talked about some of his movies at different points on the show. And we reference him pretty regularly, so it was cool being able to go back and watch this second film. But this is the one kicking us off for our 3-part South Korean crime, horror, drama, thriller sort of series. So let's get into our overall thoughts. Andi, this is one you put together, so why don't you kick us off? What were your overall thoughts on this one? And had you seen it before? I think the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. I had seen this movie before, but to be honest, I did not remember a whole lot about it. I remember not liking it that much back then, and this must have been like close to 20 years ago, somewhere around, somewhere between 2006 and 2010, probably. Um, yeah. So now I think I now have a better context for the movie, having seen more movies from South Korea, more movies by Bong Joon-ho, more movies starring that guy that is in every movie whose name I will never remember. He's in every Korean movie, and every Bong Joon-ho movie. You know who I'm talking about. And so yeah, I was very excited for this series. I was very excited for the movie, and I must say I really did enjoy the movie this time around. I still have a few things, or the movie has a few things that I find that I don't know, that still seem strange to me, which I believe is still a cultural thing. That's something that we are talking about every time we watch a movie, especially from Asia, Japan, or South Korea. I remember our episode on The Wailing. We're saying all the time, this is probably a cultural thing that I just don't understand, or something that is different, that something that makes sense for their viewing audience and maybe is strange to me. I mean, there's no Western movie where the first action police takes is a jump kick towards someone, and that happens several times in this movie.
It's so many fucking times. There's so many drop kicks in this movie.
And that is something that seems odd to me, at least, and takes me out of the movie a little bit. But I thought, especially the ending is so strong. The visuals are very strong in the movie. I am fascinated how Bong Joon-ho is able to put four people into a frame. So the design of the frame, the placement of people without moving the camera. So camera is very just a static shot, often very very Fincheresque in that way. And I mean, which serial killer movie after Seven is not in some way inspired by Seven, or references Seven, or at least must suffer the comparisons to Seven? And so in that regard, I think the movie is very very strong. What takes me, I don't think it's very suspenseful. At least it wasn't to me. I'm not on the edge of my seat watching this movie all the time, except for a few moments and towards the end. What makes the movie a little or so the characters are the police are bad in every way. They're bad at their job, and they're bad people, which makes it hard to root for them in some way. It sometimes makes it even a little bit frustrating. so the just watching them being immoral and incompetent. That's the moments where I have to tell myself, okay, this is South Korea in the mid '80s. It's a whole different vibe, probably. And somewhere out in the backcountry. So this is the equivalent to the redneck sheriff, or the whatever, the bumbling fool that's working for the police. I don't know. But overall, I think the movie is very good. I definitely have a better opinion of it now than I had the first time that I watched it, and I think it's worth seeing, definitely. Especially, I mean, it's a rare occasion where the ending of a movie lifts the whole movie up so much. So I think the movie really the ending elevates the movie to another level, in my opinion. So that's my take.
Nice. All right, cool. Dave, what do you think overall?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I was interested by the portrayal of the police in general, because it's very easy for a film that takes the point of view of the investigating officers to make them out to be not whiter than white, but certainly like, you know, the good guys, the default people that you root for at all times. And this film, from almost the outset, makes it very clear that like these are not good people. They're flawed people. And the only reason that you should be backing them is because they are trying to find a much worse person who's committing crimes. And I think that framing works quite well, actually, because even though I wasn't the biggest fan of a lot of those characters at the beginning of the film and through the majority of the film, I was still behind them in trying to track down and find the killer, because it's a fucking serial killer. I'm not going to take their side, am I? You know, there are innocent women and children that are being murdered by this motherfucker, and the only people that are going to find them are these dickheads. Well, I'm going to back the dickheads. I don't agree with everything they do. I think torture is a massively outdated and ineffective way of getting the truth out of somebody. All it ends up doing, and something that this film does very well, actually, in illustrating, is it makes people admit what you tell them to admit to, because at some point the torture becomes so much that they would rather admit to doing something they hadn't done to get the pain to stop than to carry on being tortured. So, you know, and that's not a brave stand by me. That's something that's recognised by a lot of agencies and people throughout the world. It's been illustrated multiple times in procedural dramas and police stuff. So, you know, like, go and check it out if you haven't heard of that theory already. There are plenty of places that you can see it being discussed. I like. Even though it's quite kind of like Drama 101, the outsider coming in and putting things straight, I did enjoy the whole Seung-jae Yoon, the detective from Seoul, kind of aspect. Him coming in, seeing how things work, bringing a slightly more scientific and procedural style to the investigation. Surprisingly, he doesn't jump straight in and be like, no, you shouldn't be doing this, you should be doing it this way. Like, he lets things run for a while he thinks in the background.
Too. Yeah.
And I think that's more realistic as well, because, you know, if you want to make, the best way to affect change is not to come in and start making waves instantly. It's to sit back and let people do the things that they do normally, and, you know, observe and then try to instigate change at that point. And also, his job is not to instigate change; it's to catch a killer. So ultimately, like, he's doing what he thinks is best. There's a, you know, the scene in the nightclub where the police chief throws up, and I think Park, the lead detective, he compares South Korea to the size of his dick in comparison to America. I thought that was quite a cool bit of dialogue. You know, the idea of, well, the reason that Americans have to be smart catching their criminals is because they've got a lot of land. You know, he's the most. This character is almost as obsessed with land as Lex Luthor. But then, like, because we have a smaller land over here, we can just run around and catch people by foot. And it's like, well, he's not wrong. But at the same time, you should still try to be as smart as you can be, regardless of how much land your country has, because it will lead you to catching criminals quicker. And I think that's something that he learns throughout the movie. In fact, the thing that I enjoy most about this film is the growth of Park's character throughout the movie. The way that he starts as probably his partner is the most corrupt and unlikable officer, because he's the one that puts a shower cap on his boot and kicks people to pieces. But Park lets him do that and instigates it, and, you know, so he's not a good man either. But you see the growth by the end of the movie, where he actually pulls back the Seoul detective, kind of pulls him back from the edge, like from doing something he'll regret, because this guy's come in and he's been worn down. But what I like as well about the film is the fact that I don't think it portrays his breakdown and almost like his sinking to the level of the other cops. I don't think that it's shown as being just like an inevitable thing that has to happen and we should back this, because the other guy, Park, he pulls the guy back from the edge and he says no, like, we understand why he's lost it, because he's just seen that kid murdered that he helped put the sticking plaster on before. He's seen this complete loss of innocence, and he's like, okay, I have to end this my way because our way isn't working, or I have to end it their way because my way isn't working. More to the point, and it's that interesting kind of like crossing paths, like ships in the night. Like this guy is on the way down, the other guy is on the way up, and Park almost recognizes what the other guy is going through and what he's going to do, and he pulls him back from doing it. Yeah, I did enjoy it. I think when it got to the point where I was like, oh, they're not going to find the guy, are they? I was a little bit disappointed by that, because most of these films, you expect there to be like the big arrest at the end where they finally get justice for the victims. And I was unaware that this was based on a pre-existing real life case. So the time skip to 2023 and that whole section of the movie really helped to kind of almost... The movie does not need rescuing. Don't take this the wrong way when I say this. But for me personally, it rescued the movie because it tied everything off in a way where I wasn't satisfied because the guy was still out there. But Park wasn't satisfied either because he realised the guy was still out there. And it made me think, oh, okay, they're still looking for this guy, but maybe with this new piece of evidence, with this little girl telling him, that the guy looked very plain, very ordinary. Maybe that's the clue that they need. Maybe that's the eyewitness that they lost. They've got another eyewitness now. And yeah, it's a fucking bummer, but it's a realistic ending, which was brave of them to go for, in the same way that I don't know if this will be the last time that this film was brought up, but like Seven. That's quite a brave ending to that movie, because even though they get their man, it ends on such a down note. Even though nothing is ever really confirmed, I think we all know what ending was actually going to happen there. We all know what's in the box. Schrodinger's actress. So yeah, yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it took some interesting decisions. It had some brave decisions that it made as well. Really enjoyed the acting. I thought the soundtrack really helped it along. And the 80s setting and the way that they used it for the DNA evidence and the like, that was very intelligent as well. Because if it was set in modern day Korea, you would imagine that South Korea, as it is now, they would have probably better forensic facilities than the US even has. So, setting it in the 80s when Korea was really kind of like on its heels was a really smart choice, not just because it's probably aping what happened in real life, but also because of the fact that, like I said a few weeks ago, with like mobile phones, you can make a much more intriguing movie like The Hitcher with in an era where phones weren't everywhere than you can nowadays, where you would have to go through a lot of hoops, like, oh, it's a black area, or the tower's down, or this happened or that happened. And it's like, oh, that's very convenient, isn't it? And it's like, no, we just said it in 88 when we had to send all of our DNA off to America. Okay, yeah, no, that works. That absolutely works. And at no point did I feel like I knew I was watching a 2023 movie, but at no point did I feel like I was watching a movie that was being filmed in 2023, and in the best way, if that makes sense. Like, it 2003. 2003. Sorry, yeah. What the hell? Me and years today, guys. I don't know. But thank you for
I was
that,
about to say,
Andy.
you
Very,
either
very important.
misspoke or Andy's about to blow your fucking mind that this came out 20.
No,
He's
no.
20 years older than you thought.
No, I remember it was 2003 because I remember thinking at the end of the film, we're living in a year now that's probably just as far from when this was made as it was originally set in the 80s to then.
Yeah.
So that's mind blowing as well, because I still think of the millennium as having happened not that long ago. Because I'm old. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've gone on too long. David, what did you think?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. I I really had no clue what the movie was about. I knew that it was about two detectives and there were murders. That was pretty much all I knew. I knew that it had an influential effect on other stuff, but even then, not like a massive one. I knew it was very well liked and respected. And then I want to say, actually, just had it pulled up. When was it exactly? 2020. 2021 was when it finally maybe came out, but somewhere in there they remastered it, re-released it in theaters. Criterion put out a new edition of it on Blu-ray and 4K and stuff. So another one that I had owned for a while and just had not gotten around to yet. So I think there's absolutely an element here at play that Andi was alluding to earlier that we often bring up when we talk about foreign films, especially Asian films, cultures that we maybe have a little bit less or even more or less understanding of some of the nuances that might be going on. If it's like pop culture stuff, that's different. But like Andi was saying, sometimes there might be stuff that's rooted in either folklore or like regional kind of cultural stuff that we're not. And it happens with other stuff too. We talked about At Midnight, I'll Take Your Soul, whatever, the Brazilian one. And that was a similar thing that came into play. I think that's definitely the case here at times. I do also think now, so I've seen all of Bong Joon-ho's films except for his very first one, which is called Barking Dogs Don't Bite, I think his name, or Don't Lie or something. Barking Dogs Never Bite. I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen Mother from 2009. Otherwise, I've seen all of his movies, older, newer, etc. And I especially, for whatever reason, it all came into very specific focus with this film, where I was like, oh, some of this weirdness is just Bong Joon-ho. I think he has a sense of humor, a sense of, and we've seen this already in other movies, but I wasn't prepared to see some physical slapsticky sort of gags in this one. And they're not just the drop kicks. The drop kicks are fucking amazing. I knew about that one before I watched the movie because I had seen some different like TikToks or whatever of like, check out all these fucking drop kicks and Memories of Murder. Because yeah, as Andi mentioned, it happens like 4 fucking times. But not just that, there's a moment. So I watched this with my friend Sean, who I watch a lot of films with in general. Sean and I watched Parasite in the theater together. We watched Mickey 17 in the theater together. We also watched The Host together when it came out back when we were in college. So, and we both really loved The Host. We would recommend it to people back then. We would refer to it and quote it and stuff. We were huge fans of it. So he in particular, of all of my friends, is probably the one that's most keyed into a lot of that weird Bong Joon-ho humor. We talk all the time about that scene in The Host where there's a guy in a hazmat suit. There's all these people grieving in this giant room. This guy in a hazmat suit fucking slips and falls. And it is so funny. It's one of the funniest moments of the movie. It's such at odds tonally with everything else that's going on in that moment and that scene and how sad everything is. But there's moments like that in this too. Not just like slipping and falling, but like there's a moment when the main detective is like taking the captain through some of the case details, and he has this like giant notepad of paper, and there's a part where he's using his little like pointer stick to try to get behind one sheet of paper to flip it. It's very subtle, but it's so funny and weird, like that they would keep that in and show that. Sean and I started cracking up instantly, and it was in that moment where I was like, oh, this just feels so much like some of the humor in The Host, some of the humor in Snowpiercer and in Parasite. Like he has a lot, like you see, especially for me, I was able to see now, like this goes all the way back to the beginning, even in this movie that is ostensibly to be reductive. And obviously this movie came out first. It's like South Korean Zodiac in a lot of ways. Fincher's Zodiac is what I thought of quite a bit, where there's similarities in terms of the cases, but then also the terms of the style, the approach, that feeling of like, we're getting one step forward, but then 3 steps back. We're like, we think that we found the guy. All these things line up, but it's not. There's not enough there to connect it. There's moments where they're doing shady shit to try to get a conviction. Not as shady as in this movie necessarily, but there's all of these things that I think. And once I keyed into that, by the time I got to the end, I was like, okay, I'm on board for this. Like Andi mentioned, it's not suspenseful and actiony in the same way that something like Seven can be. Even though you don't see the murders happen in Seven, there's still different chase sequences and intense moments and stuff that happen throughout the movie. For this one, didn't really, like Andi said, didn't have a ton of that. I thought it was effective, the one scene where the woman's in the field and the dude kind of stands up out of the grass and then goes back. I thought that was creepy and well done and stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a movie about these people, this community, the cultural backdrop of South Korea in the 80s, political, sort of turmoil, and then trying to solve this thing that they're just not equipped to solve between the lack of technology and resources, just the entire village sort of being, oblivious to how this is. Like they have limited resources. Like there's that scene where he's yelling at that guy on the tractor to stop going. He just runs over a footprint. There's stuff like that's happening constantly. And so you're trying, like you're rooting for them, but at the same time, you're just like, how are they going to fucking figure this out? And ultimately they don't. I mean, it's not totally, I think, just pure ineptitude, but it has that sort of thing where you have to end the film with this feeling of not melancholy, just sort of it's not satisfying. You don't have an answer, and you have people that you think maybe it could have been, but also you're like, maybe it was none of the people that we saw, and it was just somebody else in the village that or nearby or whatever that we didn't see to begin with. But I think it was one that I really liked, but it was also one that I was like, I need to rewatch this at some point because now I know what this movie is, and next time it won't be me actively trying to kind of figure out what's the tone, what's the approach, where's the story, like doing those active engagement sort of things I might do on a first watch where I don't know anything about the film. So definitely liked it. I think I'll probably like it even more on a second watch because I think there's a lot there. But it was, I thought overall pretty great. And Bong Joon-ho is just genuinely, I think, a modern master. I forget who it was. Just even a few days ago, somebody said they hadn't seen Parasite. And me and like 3 other people in the vicinity were like, you have to fuck just immediately, freaking out. Like, this is one that almost is impossible to overhype. It's such a great film. And
I know I said on our last recording that I'd not seen it. And
oh, shit, maybe it was that.
Were...
Yeah, it was us. My bad. Yeah, it was a while ago, so I was misremembering. I was thinking it happened in Maine. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That was it. Because I think I even said like it was one of those rare years where like the Oscars kind of nailed it, and everybody was just like, "Oh shit! Like this is amazing that this happened, and this was recognized, and it wasn't fucking Green Book or some other movie that kind of flew out of nowhere to snag a win that it obviously did not deserve." I haven't seen Green Book. I'm not trying to talk shit, but there's been those years where there's been controversy. So yeah, really enjoyed it and definitely recommend it. I think that I haven't seen The Chaser. That's what we're doing next week. I have seen I Saw the Devil. I don't know what The Chaser is going to be like specifically. I Saw the Devil is intense as fuck. So this is kind of a good movie to have as our first intro into it because it is a little bit more of a sort of slowly unfolding procedural movie, more so than it is like a thriller or a horror movie in any way. But it's just fucking great. It is, I think, legitimately awesome. It probably wouldn't be the first Bong Joon-ho movie I would recommend somebody watch necessarily, but once they kind of have clicked into his stuff a little bit, it fits right in, I think, with the rest of the filmography. And the cast is great, music's great, looks awesome. Plenty of shots in it where I was just like, God damn, what a great looking shot. Sometimes they were static. There's a shot where he's standing up on a hill with the sunset, and 3/4 of the bottom of the frame are filled up by scenery, and he's kind of standing across the horizon at the top. The shots in the train tunnel with all the darkness and just the entrance to the tunnel. But then I also really loved, those were static shots, obviously. I also really loved the moments of slow motion when all the people are running and fighting. Like, he has that tracking shot that's going from right to left. Looked fantastic. So it's always doing, top level shit. So it's not a movie where you're kind of waiting for your moments. It's firing on all cylinders. It's really well made.
I have to say,
I think it's aesthetically very pleasing, and I think it plays
Yeah.
great with
Yeah.
contrast. Some scenes that you just described, where it's just the landscape, and then the other scenes where it's 4 people crammed next to each other in a room, and it still looks great. So yeah, in that sense, and I like the bookend that the movie ends in the same place where it starts with basically the same scene,
character,
the same
same
guy
shot.
walking down the same road,
Mm-hmm.
just so many years later, and it connects to the beginning, and so in that sense, it is very, very a round. You didn't say that in English, I believe. A round thing. In Germany, you would say that.
well-rounded. Yeah, well-rounded. Yeah,
probably.
Yep.
I love the literal
absolutely
nature of the German language. Sometimes I really do.
I think it also kind of, to me, a little, I use this phrase too much on the show, but like a little microcosm example of both the cinematography and his tonal style is in one shot where the main dude who's in all the Bong Joon-ho movies, I'm blanking on his name. Andi,
his character was called Park. I can't remember the
Sang-kyung, right? Or what is it?
Sang-kyung.
He's sitting there with his first partner, the guy that puts the fucking boot on, like the shoe cover to kick the shit out of people, and the disabled kid that they're like trying to get a confession out of, and they're all watching TV and eating together. And then when the other cop shows up, the camera just shifts down over to the right, and you realize the interrogation table is right there. They all just get up and move to the interrogation table and continue where they left off, even though he's unrestrained. They're all just eating a meal and watching TV together and laughing about it. And that to me was like the perfect thing of like, yep, this is kind of how a Bong Joon-ho movie is. Like the cinematography, the framing, everything is so good. And then you just go from something very funny to something back to serious, and you have that moment of like, is this really fucking happening? Like, what a weird sort of thing just in the moment. And he pulls that off successfully in every movie he's made. It's crazy. You would think that eventually it would not work, or there would be some that don't land, or would just feel confusing or unsatisfying. But every single one of his movies, he does it, and it's crazy. To the point where, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, there was a small detail in that scene that reminded me of something, and I was racking my brains to try and remember what it was, and I was like, Daredevil, Season 2. The interrogation table has got a small vice on the corner of it, and you see the same detail in a scene in Daredevil Born Again Season 2 as well, and in both cases, they never draw attention to it, it never gets used, but I love the fact that the inference is always, this is here for a reason. Why would it be here otherwise? This is people's fingers have been broken in this thing, you know.
Right.
Like, and it's that environmental storytelling of like it's almost like the opposite of Chekhov's gun, where like if there's everyone knows Chekhov's gun, but I'll explain it for anyone that isn't familiar with that. Basically, if you're if it's a stage play and a gun is introduced into the stage play, it will be used at some point. That's the whole concept. Like, don't introduce things that you're not going to use. And like, it's the opposite of that because it's introduced into the story, absolutely, because you can see it right there. But they never use it because it's not there to be used. It's there to give you the feeling of, oh shit, they do some really nasty stuff in this room, right? And yeah, I love that. And I've never seen a prettier rubbish dump in my life than that scene that you were talking about with the 3/4 horizon, and there's flames in the rubbish tip, and he's got like this blazing like orange sky behind him, and he's standing there like something out of Batman. All he's missing is a cape and a gravelly voice, and probably the skyline of Singapore or something like that.
But in the 80s was just prettier.
Yeah, yep. I think so. Even in 2003.
that disabled kid's arc is one element that makes it at times kind of hard for me to connect, because when he gets killed, it's not tragic, it's just the incompetence of these fools of policemen that they kind of drive him into the position where he gets run over by a train. So it doesn't feel as tragic to me. It just makes me mad at the other characters.
I agree.
The entire thing with him is tough because we've seen it's kind of a staple, especially in crime stuff or procedural stuff, where we're not dealing with straight, and it's not Law and Order or CSI. I haven't watched those shows, but I'm assuming there's not a lot of dirty, corrupt shit going down.
You'd be surprised. I've been watching SVU recently.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. But like, I know like The Wire, The Shield, those sorts of shows were kind of known for showing like, we're going to have the cops doing pretty illegal shit. And it has this very sort of like kind of grounded, realistic look at stuff that goes down. Like, I get all that for sure. The fact that it's this kid who has a disability is tough. Like, from beginning to end, I think, to where you're just kind of like, I mean, Jesus, even in the 80s, like, you guys have to know that this is fucked up, like, on this level of what you're doing. And the movie, I agree, I don't know if it's supposed to be kind of the darkly comic tone of it, if it's a cultural thing, if it's a time and era thing, but I agree. I don't think the movie gives them enough criticism for what they're doing to begin with, but then ultimately, that it leads to this kid's death. Like, it's not played for laughs when he gets hit by the train, but it's kind of close. Like, it's not a holy shit, this is so dark, whatever. It's shocking, and in a way where I didn't laugh like I thought it was funny, but I laughed more just because I was like, holy fuck. Like, you don't expect that kind of that dark of an ending for that whole arc, and there really seems to be no repercussions either for them that I remember. So it makes a lot of sense from the how the story ended up playing out. Like, they need the witness. What I found interesting about that whole segment and that kid's story arc as well was the fact that when they showed him the picture, rather than him being, yes, that's the person, or no, that's not the person, his mind went back to when he either fell or was pushed into a fire, and that's where the scarring on the side of his face comes from. And my immediate thought when that happened was, I'm not sure that the guy that they have in the frame at the moment is the one that's done it. Like, if they're asking him about, we think this is the killer, can you identify the killer? His mind immediately goes back to something completely different. Is he drawing a link between what happened to him and what happened to the girl that he witnessed being murdered? And was it the same person that did both of those things? And it planted this seed in my head where I was like, is his father the murderer? And I found that interesting that they played around with that a little bit. I also, like, when he died, I was more kind of frustrated with how the police had handled it than anything else. I was also very frustrated at the fact that apparently when his partner throws a bottle through the TV and he goes to try and stop him, everyone holds him back. That felt kind of... It was a frustration which felt realistic, which is the worst kind of the worst kind of frustration, because you're like, yeah, that would have happened. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot about that final suspect that I have question marks about, and I wonder if he may have been the killer and just got away on the technicalities of the evidence that was collected. Like, just because you find semen on the victim doesn't mean it's the killer's semen. Like, she may have had a gentleman caller before she went out, and he left the stain. Like, there's all these steps, like, in between it being a thing. Like, even with the forensic stuff, like you're saying, like, it's never that's why it reminded me so much of the Zodiac movie and just the Zodiac case in general, is that there would be situations like that constantly. Like, Arthur Lee Allen, to this day, I'm pretty sure motherfucker Jake Gyllenhaal's character, whatever his name is, I forget now, who worked at the paper, I'm pretty sure he still thinks it's Arthur Lee Allen, or that it was Arthur Lee Allen, but it seems pretty clear that it wasn't. Now, did Arthur Lee Allen have a fucking watch that said Zodiac on it and was gone the weekend these people got killed and had all the, like, there's all of these things that line up where you're just like, oh, it's clearly him, but it wasn't. So that there's a similar thing here where even when you think they're close or they think they're close, you also realize like they're not really. They're closer to a thing that might help and might potentially lead to a conviction, but it's never a slam dunk. Like it's never a
and
open and shut thing.
It rarely is. Like you need to find if you want to use DNA evidence to convict a killer if they've raped the victim as well. You have to find it in the place that it makes sense for it to find it, right? Like it has to be sourced from the vagina or from the anus or somewhere like that. If you find it on clothing, there's too much of a chance that could be cross-contamination from someone else. As weird as that sounds, because not everyone is just going to be flinging semen everywhere, but still, like. You know, like
and even the way
to draw a straight line to it, and even
the way that they worked it, in the movie, it's just like there's part of you that's like, well, is this even who fucking? They had to mail this shit overseas to have it tested somewhere else and wait for that to get like. There's just so many factors there.
Go in the meantime, and and it's like you think about some of the evidence, like the fact that the song that only ever played on the nights of the murders, like either that is massive coincidence or is that like the red flag saying no, it's definitely him that's done it. But then they have evidence that points away from him. But like if you were to look at the amount of evidence that says yes, he did it, you're talking about like the soft hands, the radio station, the fact that he moved into the vicinity within the same kind of time zone as the murders started. There's too much there to not count him in as a potential suspect. If they had got I think his name was Kwang-ho, the disabled lad. If they'd got a testimony out of him, if they'd been able to get him to say who it was he saw, that would have been the slam dunk that they needed. But getting rid of him in the most tragic of ways, and then throwing into doubt by saying that the DNA evidence they found wasn't right, it didn't match. That threw just enough in the way that they had to let him go. I'm not sure that Park, Song Kang-ho's character, I'm not convinced that he thinks that the guy is innocent, but I think he's had enough of a journey at this point that he's like, number one, we can't go around shooting people, and number two, we don't have the evidence to say that he's guilty, so we're going to have to let him go for now. And in my mind, that's kind of backed up by the epilogue where the little girl says, oh, he was just a plain, ordinary-looking guy. Because throughout the movie, whenever we see the third suspect, you see him in the bar, and there's two women walking by, and one of them is distracted by his devastating good looks. They make him out to be like a very good-looking guy. I don't think that little girl would call him, even after 20-odd years, because in my mind he's a fucking silver fox. He would be a good-looking guy, like in 2003 as much as he was in the 80s. Like that kind of throws more doubt into the works as well. But yeah, it's like it just kind of goes to prove just how difficult police work can be if you haven't got the evidence that would absolutely nail someone down, and you're literally just going on just the basis of, well, they happen to be in this area at this time, and they happen to be this, and they happen to be, oh, he's got soft hands. Oh, you're going to convict a guy for moisturizing, are you? Like it's really difficult to nail someone down unless you have that one piece of critical evidence, whether it be an eyewitness or DNA evidence that inextricably links them. But yeah, that's the kind of frustration I hate the most. It's the one that's realistic, and I'm like, God damn, this happens every day in real life as well.
Park's arc starts out with him saying that he can see if someone's guilty. He sees it in their eyes, and then over the course of this case, he realizes, I can see nothing, and these people, a guilty person doesn't look like a killer. It's just a plain old or a plain person. It could be anyone. There's so many people that I've suspected I wanted to be guilty, and they turn out not to be guilty, or the evidence turns out to be inconclusive, and we have to let them go. I can't prove anything. I cannot just, as it seems like I used to be able in the past to just find people, say they're guilty, get them to confess with torture, case closed.
It's almost like none of them were ever guilty.
Yeah, and maybe and that's maybe that's also an aspect that is implied, and because he leaves the police.
I was going
In
to
Troy
mention
Sivan's
that.
we
Yeah.
see him married with
Hmm.
2 kids, being a salesman. Maybe that is implied that he realizes I was bad at my job and
Hmm.
I killed people, or I put people into the position where they are killed because I tried to frame someone. I influenced people's lives. I got them into prison, and they may have not been guilty. I may have believed they are guilty, and I framed them because I thought I did the right thing, because I was sure I can see if someone's guilty. I can temper with the evidence so that the other people can see it too, because I know they are guilty. And then he realizes probably all these people, or some of them, weren't even guilty, and I may have put them into prison or worse. And that maybe these are aspects that, I don't know, could have been worked out a little clearer in the movie
Hmm.
to have me more engaged with some of these things, as the moment when the kid is killed by the train. If there was some realization that I can see, or him saying something like, we killed that kid, we got that kid killed, we have to change our ways. Maybe I wasn't, I don't know, maybe I didn't sense that enough. Maybe on a rewatch, if I would look for more clues into, or yeah, more clues for such a change in the character. I don't know where I'm going with this. I hope you understand what
No,
I'm
I know what
trying
you
to
mean.
say.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's just it's a tough balance with something like that, because I could see some of these jokes or moments working in a movie that has a slightly shifted tone. But when you are, it does seem like maybe a situation where, I mean, maybe I'm taking back what I said earlier about how he always nails it. Maybe this was an early time where it was a little bit more, it wasn't quite as executed and balanced as perfectly as it should have been, because you do feel a little uneasy, and not in a like fun, weird way, like you might with Snowpiercer or something like that. It did make me think about what his first film is like, because I know I clicked on it briefly, and I'd read about it in the past. The Barking Dogs Never Bite. I know that it has to do with a guy who is like kidnapping and killing dogs in his apartment complex because they're barking all the time. So
Jesus.
it makes me wonder if like that was also an earlier kind of thing. And he's always stayed dark and always stayed. I mean, Parasite's a very dark movie too. But that one also, feels very, very balanced, just like perfectly balanced. That would be kind of the apex, I think, of maybe some of the tonal stuff he's done. So it may be one of those things you see that happening with filmmakers sometimes, where their earlier work is much more, I mean, obviously just in general, much more rough, but like senses of humor and jokes and tones and stuff like that. Like, you might watch, one of their films from 20 years prior after you've become a fan of them now and be like, holy fuck, I can't believe that this movie has these concepts or these words in it, or, whatever else. And it's a more unrefined thing. So I did wonder about that.
There's one thing about the depiction of the police that might be actually completely explained by what I've just found here, because I very quietly in the background I was googling, because I remembered there were scenes in the movie where like the school students were doing drills and readying themselves for gas attacks and things like that, and I was like, what the hell was going on in South Korea in the 80s? So I looked it up, and
I had this moment too. I didn't look it
yeah,
up, but I
so
did turn to Sean and be like, wasn't ready for this. Because from one moment to the next, there's suddenly fucking Molotovs being thrown. And
yeah.
it comes out of nowhere.
So it comes under the heading on Wikipedia as the Gwangju Uprising, which took place in 1987. And yeah, essentially, it happened because somebody was tortured to death in police custody
Oh, shit.
in 87. The June Democracy Movement of 1987, basically, they were holding the Olympics the next year. There were huge protests about how the authoritarian military government was running things, and eventually they capitulated, and that was the moment that sparked South Korea's uptick and their eventual growth into the republic that we see today, like a massively thriving, democratically elected government with an economy that is one of the world leaders where it comes to technology and innovation. And it all comes from the recognition that the police were doing a lot of really shitty things, and that the government were basically giving it the thumbs up. And that kind of recolors the movie a little bit for me, because suddenly it becomes a case of, well, this is a movie that is illustrating just how bad things were where it came to the police in the late 1980s. Because either this movie, and there's a mention at some point when they realise another murder is going to happen that night, and the police chief rings for reinforcements. He asks for a couple of garrisons, and I can't remember if they said a specific place, but he basically said they're not sending us one single person because they think that they can repress an uprising. And I'm wondering if that was, if not this uprising, then one similar to it, and if this movie might actually be set pre or during the uprising, which means that the things that these policemen were doing were the norm in Korea at the time. That they weren't mavericks, they weren't acting beyond their limits. They were very much doing what every policeman would do up and down the country. And then that recontextualizes the guy that comes from Seoul as a very progressive, forward-thinking guy who is more kind of emblematic of the Korea that they became afterwards. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a scholar. I don't know. I find these things interesting, and these were the first things that came out of my head. I don't know if they're right or not, but it could be.
No, I think that's incredibly relevant. I didn't look it up at all. I knew just on what I saw in the Wikipedia article about it being, that sort of turmoil, and then I think it also mentioned specifically like cultural conservative, like more conservative. What did it say? I just had it pulled up.
I feel like Asia in general tends
political
to
oppression
towards...
and cultural conservatism.
Yeah.
There was another thing mentioned on the Wikipedia article I wanted to throw out there just because I thought it was pretty interesting. It was from Professor of Korean Studies and cultural critic David Tizard, who talked about specifically Bong Joon-ho's use of what he calls the abyss. So this sort of dark, just black void that might exist in the composition of a shot. Obviously, in this movie, it's the train tunnel stuff, and then there's a huge one that is recurring in Parasite with a stairwell that leads down into the darkness, and then he mentions another one in Mother, which I haven't seen, but I thought that was pretty interesting because there was a thing right away there, even just knowing this and Parasite, where you're like, oh, I see that instantly. Like it feels very intentional and very much like a visual metaphor that he's coming back to. So I'd like to see Mother as well. It was one that came out when I think I saw The Host first of his films, and so I was watching a lot of Korean, Japanese, Asian film in general, working at Blockbuster. I was in high school at the time, so that's when I first saw Tale of Two Sisters and what's the fucking vampire one? Thirst. It was around the same time. Dumplings, part of Three Extremes, like all that kind of stuff. So it was one. Mother came out. It was one. Old Boy, obviously a huge one. We talked about that on the show. When Mother came out, it was one that was in that mix for me, where I kind of associated it with all of those other, Korean revenge crime things. But I didn't until years later piece together like, oh, that was Bong Joon-ho specifically. It wasn't just another one kind of in the mix. Have either of you guys seen it? Mother?
No.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So, yeah, excited to see that too, especially with this whole idea. Do you guys have any other big thoughts?
That tunnel at the end, that was the one image that stayed in my mind from having seen the movie so long ago.
Nice.
Because for a while I wasn't even entirely sure if I had seen the movie. I thought I was pretty sure I had seen the movie, but when that image came up, that confirmed to me, yes, I have seen this movie before.
Yeah. To me, it was a movie that was huge for me in high school. Was a little movie called Brick by Rian Johnson. It was Rian Johnson's first film. Yeah. And that was what, as soon as I saw those sequences, it made me wonder, like, I bet Rian Johnson was I'm assuming, although they're closer than you would think. Like, Brick came out probably in 2006 or 7. Yeah, there's a sequence in Brick. There's like a few different scenes that have a very similar thing where it's a train tunnel sort of entrance, and he uses shooting inside and outside of the tunnel, the darkness to that effect. And so yeah, that's what I thought of right away. But again, one of those things where I wasn't like, oh, he got it from Brick. I just assumed Rian Johnson got it from Bong Joon-ho, but maybe not. It was close to the same time.
Well, I mean, 2003,
yeah.
2006, there's definitely time for Johnson to have, I'm not saying he's ripped anyone off, but,
Oh, but yeah, homage it, yeah.
Because everyone's got their own way of interpreting a thing, and like nothing in Hollywood is completely original anymore, so please no one think that I'm saying this. But, 2003, this movie comes out, and then 2006, Brick comes out. That a 3-year gap is more than, or even if you say like 2.5, that's more than enough to be able to see the movie and have that spark of inspiration where you're like, oh, I could feed that into my movie.
Yeah.
Of course, may not have
if
done
we
at
dig
all,
deep
but...
enough, if we dig deep enough, I'm sure we'll find 1940s noir movies that have similar moments that inspired all of them.
Of course.
And Brick is very much, specifically pulling from that and the noir-y shit. Okay. Do we have any other big thoughts before we do double feature picks?
I'm good.
No, I'm fine.
All right, let's do it. Andi, kick us off. What you got this week?
I won't pick 7. 7 is a movie that people can probably pick each week now. I don't know. It would fit nicely because of the nihilistic ending, especially. But
yeah,
I'm going with another movie that Dave and I did an episode on some years ago, and I think I picked it at some point, a double feature as well. It happened in broad daylight, Swiss movie starring Gerd Fröbe as the serial killer of small girls, a movie that influenced my movie watching a lot, that I've seen so many times over the course of my life. Whenever it was on TV and I happened to find it, I would just watch it. And probably my first, maybe this is the movie that made me interested in serial killer movies. I don't know. Might have been the first serial killer movie that I watched. And yeah, I love that movie just so much. It's ingrained in my movie DNA. And yeah, so it happened in broad daylight from maybe, I don't know, the 50s or so. I didn't look it up when exactly it was made. Black and white movie from Switzerland, so German language movie, some German actors, some Swiss actors.
Sweet. Perfect. Dave, what you got?
This pick is based purely on vibes. I, as the kids would say, I've got absolutely no good reason as to why I'm picking this other than it just feels right. It was one of the first things that popped into my head. I think it's based mainly on like tone, but I'm going with the first season of True Detective.
I thought about one as well watching that movie.
Okay, cool. It's not just me then. Excellent. That's always
especially
encouraging.
the time. Even though the timeline thing is brief, that was the first thing I thought of when it went to 2003. I was like, oh shit, like True Detective, which does it the whole season, but same thing.
So yeah, there you go. Short and sweet.
Cool. I already picked mine, but I'll keep it. I think this is a pretty great double feature pick with Zodiac, assuming that you are down for like 4+ hours of procedural stuff, both of which end in a killer not being caught. It would be a pretty depressing, now that I think about it, a pretty depressing 4+ hours. But I mean, there is something I think so just like fun, enjoyable. It scratches the same itch as like courtroom dramas for me, or where you're seeing this thing play out and unravel. And it's different to me than a mystery stuff, because we've talked about that. I'm not super into mystery stuff as a genre, but there is something about this, like the analytical approach, even when it's fucking shitty and bad, like in this movie, and under-resourced and underdeveloped or whatever. There's still something that just, if you have the focus and the talent and the script writing and then the filmmaking, which obviously Bong Joon-ho and David Fincher are both going to be able to pull off, it's a pretty satisfying watch. Zodiac's one I've gone back and rewatched many times, and I could rewatch it today. I think it's a fantastic movie. Cool. Next week we are talking about The Chaser. So we mentioned earlier, we've made references in this episode, and in the past we did a whole episode on it as well, over The Wailing. So this is Na Hong Jin's directorial debut, The Chaser, from 2008. He did the Yellow Sea a couple years later, and then 8 years later, after The Chaser, did The Wailing, which we talked about. And then 10 years after The Wailing, so this year, is coming out a movie. That's not really a sentence. There's a movie. His newest film is coming out called Hope, which Andi sent us the trailer for a few weeks back, and it looks fucking awesome. I rewatched the trailer yesterday with Sean. So very excited. All these weird connections happening with this one. But yeah, Chaser is one that's been on my radar forever and have never seen. So 2008's The Chasers next week. And then, as previously mentioned, week after that, we'll be talking about I Saw the Devil from, I don't remember what the year was, probably 2009, 10, around that too.
I believe.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, listeners, let us know what you thought of Memories of Murder. If you've watched it, if you've not, I think we recommend it. Check it out. As mentioned now, it's or as previously mentioned, it's on at least in the US, they've had some re-releases, remasters, so it's pretty easy to get a hold of. But yeah, give it a watch. Let us know your thoughts. If you'd like to send us some longer form ones, again, feel free to do so at eerieinternational@gmail.com. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.